So I'm going to start with a clip from the 1979 Ivan Reitman movie Meatballs. And to put it in context, and for those of you who may not know the movie, Bill Murray plays a camp counselor at a summer camp that's competing in this athletic competition against another much more high-powered and expensive camp, and they're getting their butts kicked. And this is his motivational pep talk to his campers.
You mean it's all over?
Cut the crap, Morty. I mean, the Mohawks have beaten us the last 12 years. They're going to beat us again.
That's just the attitude we don't need, Phil. Sure, Mohawk has beaten us 12 years in a row. Sure, they're terrific athletes. They've got the best equipment that money can buy. Hell, every team they're sending over here has their own personal masseuse. Not masseur, masseuse. But it doesn't matter. Do you know that every Mohawk competitor has an electrocardiogram, blood and urine tests every 48 hours to see if there's any change in his physical condition? Do you know that they use the most sophisticated training methods from the Soviet Union, East and West Germany, and the newest Olympic power, Trinidad Tobago? But it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. I tell you, it just doesn't matter. 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 It doesn't. And even if we win, ha! Even if we win, even if we play so far over our heads that our noses bleed for a week to 10 days, even if God in heaven above comes down and points his hand at our side of the field, even if every man, woman, and child held hands together and prayed for us to win, it just wouldn't matter, because all the really good-looking girls would still go out with the guys from Mohawk because they got all the money. It just doesn't matter if we win or we lose. It just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter.
So, over the years, when things have gotten particularly stressful or difficult in life, I found that I've thought of that speech and that mantra, it just doesn't matter, and found oddly comforting this idea that whatever's stressing me out or getting me down, when viewed from another angle, probably doesn't matter as much as I currently think it does. When I told my wife the subject of my talk was going to be "It Just Doesn't Matter," she said, "You can't do that at Viewpoint." I know what she meant, as perhaps you do too, that to stand up here in front of a group of people who are driven to achieve and part of a community that's part of, that strives for education and greatness and all of that, you can't say it just doesn't matter. And I suppose if I were speaking to a room full of unambitious slackers, the point would be more of, you know, why are you letting your life pass you by? Get off your butts, it matters. But to overachievers who are burdened with tremendous stress about grades and college applications and God knows what else, remembering every once in a while that it just doesn't matter maybe isn't the worst thing in the world, because really what I'm talking about is perspective. It does, of course, matter. It matters a lot of things matter, but only up to a point. So really the key, I think, and what I've struggled with my whole life, my whole career really, and continue to struggle with, is trying to maintain that perspective. That balance between feeling like it matters and remembering that it doesn't really as much as it may feel like at the time. There's a quote I love from a congressman who served back in the 50s and 60s named Eugene McCarthy, not to be confused with Senator Joseph McCarthy, McCarthyism fame. Eugene McCarthy said, "Being in politics is like being a football coach. You have to be smart enough to understand the game and dumb enough to think it's important." I'm actually not sure why he considered politics unimportant. I sort of get it regarding football, and I can also see the wisdom in this statement as a metaphor for life itself in some ways. But for me, I've always found it to be especially applicable to my job, writing, producing, and running TV shows. To be a TV showrunner, you have to be smart enough to be able to do the job, but dumb enough to think it's important. And there's a lot to the job. You know, you have to manage the outlining and writing and rewriting of scripts. You have to oversee the casting and the actual, rehearsals and shooting of the show, as well as editing, music scoring, sound mixing, often these days visual effects. in addition to dealing with the personalities of the actors and the network executives, and dealing with the personality conflicts among the various cast and crew members. So you have to be smart enough to do all that, and dumb enough to think it's important. Because if I have a bad day at work, the worst thing that happens is there's a bad episode on TV. No one dies. Maybe no one laughs at a joke and that joke dies, but that's a kind of a whole other order of magnitude. It's not like if a trauma surgeon or a firefighter has a bad day at work. I was producing a TV show called On the Band, which is that, and there was another show that had their offices on the floor above ours, so we'd see each other around and be friendly. And one day we were talking to one of the writers on that show who said that their rewrite nights typically ended around 6 p.m., which is ridiculously early for that kind of TV production. We would typically, our rewrite nights would often go to maybe 8 to 10, a lot of times later. There wasn't unheard of for shows to go well past midnight on rewrite nights. And so we commented on that to this writer, and he said, yeah, their showrunner had to end work early because of her movies. And I said, oh, wow, I didn't realize she was also writing movies. And he said, no, she likes to go see them. Which was one of those rare instances of life imitating a sitcom set of one joke structure. So it seemed to me that she had decided that it just didn't matter, that working those extra hours we were working wasn't necessary, that it wasn't that important. And the thing is, her show was very successful, much more so than the show I was doing, so maybe she was correct. Or to put it another way, maybe she was smart enough to do the job and smart enough to realize that it wasn't that important. Maybe she had succeeded in maintaining that balance and that perspective. But for myself, I just couldn't find it in me to adopt that same attitude, no matter how much I tried at times. Not even necessarily for the sake of the viewers or of the network that was paying my salary, but for myself, it mattered to me. And I wanted to get everything perfect and had trouble maintaining a certain perspective. One day I was in the writer's room on the next show I did, which was called Dog with a Blog. And I was with the staff working on a script, and I got a phone call from someone in Indiana, from a Make-A-Wish type organization, which was called Wish Upon a Star. And there was a 14-year-old girl named Abigail Weissman, who was very ill. And Dog with a Blog was her favorite show, and her wish was to meet the dog from our show. And this is our dog, Nick. And here's some other pictures of him, which I'm showing just because it's fun. Here he's behind the camera. And Abigail's wish was to meet Nick. But she, as it turned out, was too sick to travel, so I figured, okay, that's that. And so I'm not the hero of this part of the story. The hero, or heroes actually, were our dog trainers, Gwen and Steve Solomon. And this is actually Gwen here in the green lycra bodysuit, which was an act of heroism of a whole other sort. The act of heroism I'm talking about is the Steve and Gwen, and here they are without the bodysuits. They got on a plane on their own time with Mick to go to Indiana to see Abigail. They later told me they were concerned about how Mick would react, because he actually has a tendency to be kind of shy and even afraid of strangers. He was abused earlier in his life before he was rescued by Steve and Gwen, and so they weren't sure how he would handle this. But the moment Mick saw Abigail, he went right up to her, and he never left her side for the next 2 days. He went with her on a trip to the doctor. Together, they went in a limo provided by the Make-A-Wish company to go to a pet store to buy dog treats. She was tired later that day, and her parents really wanted her to rest, but she was afraid that if she fell asleep, Mick would be gone when she woke up. And Mick, who was really intuitive, all on his own, he just climbed up on the couch next to her at that point, and she fell asleep there swooning him. The next week, Mick was back in Los Angeles, back at work on the show, and Steve and Gwen connected with Abigail on their iPad to video chat, so that she could meet the show's human cast and watch the rehearsals and run-throughs, and they did this for the next few days. And I know it meant a lot to Abigail and to her family that she was able to have this really special experience with her favorite TV show. There are actually pictures of Mick visiting with Abigail, which I tried to find for this and was not able to. The picture of Abigail I was able to find was this one, which appeared in the local Indiana paper a couple weeks after Mick's visit in Abigail's obituary. When I heard that Abigail had died, I was struck by two completely contradictory thoughts. On the one hand, it really did seem, more than it ever had before, that this TV show just didn't matter. I mean, really, after all, how much could some silly TV show mean in the context of this tragic passing of a 14-year-old girl? And yet simultaneously came the exact opposite thought, that it mattered a great deal because it mattered so much to Abigail and her family. So really, again, it's all about perspective. Thank you.